Welcome to another edition of Pod Jerky. I am your host, Tom, and on today's episode, we have from the podcast Realm of the Mist, Christopher Stolle. Did I say that right?
Kind of. Don't worry, as long as you get it right on my paycheck. No, the Stolle's the last name, and actually, Realm of the Mist is the production company. The podcast I'm on is Breaking the Fourth Wall.
Breaking the Fourth Wall, right? Okay.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. And what is your podcast about?
It just went through a rehash. Actually, we released our first episode under the new rehash yesterday. And what it is it's always been an interview podcast where we'll sit down with celebrities or people from next door. Like the tagline for Breaking the Fourth Wall is everybody has a story. So, I've sat down and I've interviewed like sixth grade teachers, and I've interviewed internet strippers, and I've also interviewed celebrities like Jack O'Halloran from Superman 2 or Sean Kanan from like Karate Kid 3, just as examples, not to name drop. But so I've talked to everybody, but for the longest time, when I first started Breaking the Fourth Wall 4 years ago, it was a roundtable discussion about movies, mostly us pretending we were, critics, pretending like we actually had the know-how of Siskel and Ebert, if you will. And what I always enjoyed is when we had our funnier moments. So under the inspiration of things like morning terrestrial radio shows like Opie and Anthony or Bob and Tom or Preston and Steve, I, with a couple other podcasters, decided to revamp Breaking the Fourth Wall to have a weekly show in that vein and format, which is just segmented comedy with a featured interview that week. So
Nice. Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's actually from Canada as well, but now he lives in the UK. And I'm going to name drop his podcast on this show right now. His podcast is called Best Film Ever, and it's a fantastic podcast that's out there right now. And they do reviews of great movies that have been out there now. We're working on one for Sunday to showcase him on a live episode for The Breakfast Club. He's done multiple other episodes. He also has one called Talking the Mickey, where he does reviews on Disney stuff, so Hamilton and Toy Story and other movies like that. And it's a fantastic podcast. And they kind of do the same kind of thing where they go back and they kind of review the movies of whatever they're reviewing on that specific episode. But it's actually very interesting, and it's a very good podcast.
I'm actually disappointed when you said the Talking with Mickey. Showing the fact that I'm from Philadelphia, the first thought of Mickey that came to my mind wasn't Mickey Mouse. It was "Not now, Rocky." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Wrong Mickey.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And with your podcasting, how long have you been doing it?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years. I started with Breaking the Fourth Wall when I came up with it. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Me and a couple friends would have a phone conversation with my phone on speaker, and I would have a digital recorder next to it, so that way it would capture them and me. And that's literally how I started. So I don't recommend anybody going back to seeing the first 20, 30 episodes of Breaking the Fourth. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that we ran into the same problem when we started. Like, I mean, we did our research and we did our homework on it. We bought some equipment and then started off. But then you look into the editing of it and you're like, you know what, this is really terrible compared to what we're releasing today and all the stuff that you learn along the way. So, yeah, that's one of the problems that we had run into as well.
It's funny when you say that, because when you go back and you look at the stuff on YouTube, because I was doing YouTube before I discovered audio podcasts. I was completely ass backwards on all of it. I would record it on the digital recorder and all that. And then because I didn't have any video to go with it for the YouTube video, I would do a backsplash of the Breaking the Fourth Wall logo and just have the audio play otherwise. But I used a free download app on my phone to create it, and it would take like 8 hours on my phone to even create the video. To have this video with a freaking watermark in the corner of it, that wasn't my watermark.
Yeah.
It was so horrible.
Yeah. Now I've learned to just use Windows Media Player and put our logo in it and put the audio behind it and then throw it up onto YouTube. It takes about 10 minutes and it's fine. I mean, I was doing the same thing where I was using a different movie program and it was putting it up and I was like, how is this going to take me 6 hours just to make a video file to throw onto YouTube? This is ridiculous. So you got to do your homework. You got to look at what's going on out there and then play around with it and see what's best for you.
Yeah. I mean, now with the video stuff, I mean, the best options are Skype and Zoom because they can automatically grab it right off the bat, and then you just use your video editor, whatever your choice. My personal choice is HitFilm, HitFilm Express. It's just the one I feel the most comfortable using. I'm sure there's better ones out there, but that's the one I use. But the audio, that's still a trick. I mean, the video stuff, when I create the audio versions of it, I just rip the audio out of the video and upload. It's easy enough. But the biggest trick I can give to any podcaster from my own personal experience is if you have segment pieces or if you have intros and outros that you want to have in the show, pre-edit those. Create the one that you're going to use over and over and over again. So that way when you record your actual main content, it's literally just copy and paste to put the rest of the shit in it. It makes it a whole lot faster.
Oh, it does. Yeah, definitely. I have those just sitting on my desktop and then I just pop them into the editing program and it's good to go and you throw in the middle part, right?
Yeah.
And, we still make our rookie mistakes. I mean, we've been doing this for about 4.5 months now, but we're doing really, really well. And we still make our rookie mistakes. I did a podcast interview with a true crime expert about 2 weeks ago. We just released the episode yesterday. And when I had played it back, we had done the interview over Zoom, and we've done all of our interviews over Skype. And we did the interview over Zoom, and Zoom didn't pick up my mic, but we had no clue during the interview that it didn't pick up my mic, and it was only using the computer mic. And the computer's kind of pushed back so that I had the mic in front of me. Right. And when I went back and I listened to it, I was like, oh my God, this is so amateur. It sounds terrible. So I went back and I re-recorded my parts to the best that I could with the emotion and everything in it, and I just re-edited it into the episode because I was like, this is ridiculous. So you still make your rookie mistakes now, even though we're about 35 episodes in right now, and I mean it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can remember 2 off the top of my head were interview times that were just terrible. Was one time was with Jack O'Halloran. I got a great interview with him. We sat down for like 2 hours just bullshitting, and I went to check it after we were done, and I said goodbye to him. It was gone. I never hit record.
Oh wow!
I never.
Oh wow!
So I had to
I can tell you, the man loves to talk. We did an interview with him as well. We're in the process of editing it, and he loves to talk.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So I had to call up the publicist again, Steve Joyner, and I was like, dude, don't tell him this, but I didn't hit record, So we made up some excuse of like I had a technical malfunction or something, but and of course if he hears this episode, he's gonna be like that motherfucker. But I mean, I'm sorry. Can I come on your show?
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I just realized I'm like dropping F-bombs, didn't even say
no. Doesn't matter.
Another time was very similar to yours. It was not too long after I got the mixer for my microphone and was trying to produce the show, and I'm talking to somebody on Skype, and this was a completely different show. And when I went back to listen to the playback, their stuff was fine. But you couldn't hear me for shit, and it's because I forgot to turn on the damn mixer. So I had to do the exact same thing you did, is I had to sit there and voice over my own episode.
Yeah, and that took way too long for my liking because I was like, oh, you know what? This episode was really, really well done. There wasn't a lot of editing to do in it, just because they knew their material, they knew their stuff. The questions were great, or their back and forth was great, and then you go back and listen to it, and you're like, no, I'm not releasing this. It's just outright terrible. So I just had to go redo it, and that took me about 3 days by the time I could re-record and edit it back in and get it all done. It was just it was a lot of work, but I mean it was worth it because the episode came out really, really well.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me hijack your show.
No worries.
Give a question. when you release your product, when you're sitting there and editing, you got that, like when you're done with this episode here or this interview, how much editing do you put to the actual main subject topic, minus like taking out dead air time or something like that, or are you type of person like myself where outside of like long pauses, long dead air, I don't touch the main film. I leave any flubs or mistakes in there because I think it just kind of adds to the charm. So I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, it adds to the realness of it. I know if I listen to myself talk and I say I'll try and edit out a few of those here and there, but I'm not usually too bad on them now because we've become very aware of it doing the podcast over and over again now. And I kind of like learned a few tricks. We use Audacity to do our editing, and I've learned a few tricks to take out like the silences all in one shot. We've learned how to do like the compressor and the normalization and just clean up the audio a little bit. So the editing has been really, really taken down in terms of time compared to what we had when we first started. When we first started, we were spending 4, 5, 6 hours on it. Just to do one episode, but now it's probably, I think I edited an episode yesterday in about an hour and a half.
Okay. I tell you, it's funny how self-conscious you come doing this stuff. I mean, for the 4 years that I was doing this, I became very, very self-conscious of the fact, like you were pointing out, the I became very self-conscious of the fact that I had a phrase that it was like a nervous tick. I would preface it every sentence with stuff of that nature, and it got to the point that I was starting to joke around and say that you could, have a drinking game to it. Every time I say it, take a shot. But I actually started being self-conscious of making sure I didn't say that phrase. So.
Yeah, and that's mine as well. My wife said she found my tell in the podcast, and she said, you say stuff like that a lot in the podcasts. And I'm like, you know what? Now I'm so self-conscious about saying it, so I try my hardest not to say it during a podcast. But hey, it's gonna come up once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while. I actually giggle every time I catch myself saying stuff of that nature now. So
yeah,
it's like there's one. Yeah, but yeah. So I'm curious. I'm on the show. I don't know the show. I haven't had a chance to sit down and listen to it yet. What is the Jerky Pod or Pod Jerky?
Pod Jerky.
Pod Jerky.
Yeah. So we started out basically right from the beginning as just a variety show. So we would talk about everything. We talked about different things in my wife and I's life. We talked about fertility struggles. We talked about just pet peeves with each other. I'm actually host with a co-host of mine that is a partner with me at work, and we're on a lot of episodes together. But my wife will jump on when he's not available. And we just talk about everything in general. We'll talk about movies. We'll talk about like Netflix reviews. We'll talk about fertility, pet peeves. I work with special needs kids every day. Okay. And we did an episode on autism. So we just do everything there. Right now, we've gotten into a lot of music episodes because we have a Canadian rapper that just came out with a single. And he's a rapper from about 20 years ago that he came out with some new stuff now. And we're helping with him, and we're doing promotions for him, and he's working with us, and we're doing a lot of his teamwork. So we're having his people on the show and interviewing them and doing stuff like that. So we're working on a big project with them right now that's supposed to be taking place in a couple of weeks from now, hopefully, and hopefully that's gonna like push it more mainstream than it is right now.
That's funny. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, I took a drink as soon as you said stuff like that.
I did say that too.
You can edit that part out and send it to your wife. It's like, yeah, caught me. Now it's funny you say that because I used to be a professional wrestler, independent circuit, and one of the federations I worked for and one of the guys I worked with did the exact same thing. He was a special needs teacher. In fact, I remember one of the shows I did was at his school, and it was kind of funny because I wrestled a buddy of his, Chris Petra, that night. But the wrestler / promoter who went by the name Maverick was a science teacher for a special needs school. And what was hilarious is, like, at a wrestling show, people go by their gimmick names, and the fans know you by your gimmick names, and that's what it is. And poor Mav, he's going out to the ring and they're calling him by his name, Mr. Blah blah. I don't remember what his real name is, but like Mr. Blah blah blah, and cheering him on and stuff. I remember it was really touching too, the special needs kids, because I was a bad guy at the time and Chris Petra was a good guy. So I had won that match. No, I'm sorry, I did. I lost that match, and I screwed myself. I got myself disqualified, and apparently these kids did not care about good guys or bad guys, because, when the show was done and over and I went in the back and I got changed into my normal street clothes and I went to go meet my girlfriend at the time. She's sitting next to this little girl in a wheelchair who's crying, dying. And I'm like, why? What's wrong, sweetheart? Like letting the character down. And she was crying because I lost. She was sad that I lost.
Wow.
Yeah,
but that's the impact that you can have on other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's
such a special thing.
And mentioning that you were a professional wrestler, you're from Philadelphia, and we were actually talking on the phone. I think it was last week before we had booked this episode, and you were actually talking to me about a situation that had happened to you coming off of the bus of somewhere, where somebody wanted to, I think, jump you or try to rob you or something.
Colorado.
Do you want to tell that story there?
About 1999, 2000, I decided to move to Colorado Springs to help out family issues. I have family out in Colorado Springs. So the ironic thing is I'll preface that with this story. My mother lives out in Colorado Springs. Now, my mother was against me being an entertainer in any way, shape, or form. She knew I had a dream of being a musician, and she tried to squash it in every way, shape, or form. I grew up always hearing that musicians die at an early age of drug overdoses. That's what they do. So when I became a professional wrestler, I thought, oh, Jesus, my mother will love this. If she thinks, all musicians are drug addicts, let's talk about champagne and painkillers and steroids for a minute, So when I decided I was going to come out there to help out family, I knew I was going to continue my wrestling career. So I had to finally bite the bullet and call my mother and tell her what I do, because I'm going to have to find a federation out there. I'm going to be doing shows. So I gave the call and I'm like, Mom, I got to confess to something. And I told her finally that for the past couple of years, I've been an independent professional wrestler, and I intend to continue to do so out in Colorado. And I just don't want you to, think I've been lying to you, even though I've been keeping it from you for the past couple of years. And she was silent on the phone. And then all of a sudden she said, I always knew you'd get into some form of acting. That was it. Like I was prepared. I was clenched up, like butt just clenched as hard as it could, waiting for that backlash. Are you effing kidding me? And that was all I got. It was actually kind of disappointing. But now, so I finally get the Greyhound bus. I took a Greyhound out from Philadelphia to Colorado Springs, Colorado, which took a day and a half, 36 straight hours on a bus. The stupidest part of it was spending a 4-hour layover in Denver. I could have walked to Colorado Springs before the bus decided to leave the terminal to go to Colorado Springs. During that time, like I said, I was always dreaming of being a musician. So I always had a guitar and stuff like that. And I had a very nice 1986 Ibanez EX Series guitar. Now, understand, when I got off the bus at Colorado Springs, I was wearing a Philadelphia Eagles hat, a Philadelphia Flyers Eric Lindros jersey, carrying this Ibanez on my back and waiting for the bus driver to open up the side thing so I can get my duffel bag and everything else. And these three little wannabe punk kids, the ones, the little white boys all dressed up like they're from NWA. And they're coming up to me. It's like, yo, Holmes, that nice guitar. I'm like, oh, yeah, thanks. And they're like, you should give it to me. And I looked at them like, excuse me? And you should give it to me. And I just laughed at them. Like, I didn't mean to be an arrogant prick. And it was definitely not the wrestling gimmick that came out of me. But it was just like, are you fucking kidding me? I literally just got off the bus in this place, and I'm looking around, and Colorado Springs is beautiful. It's nice. I'm in downtown Colorado Springs, and it's better than the suburbs of where I grew up. you know, and I'm sitting there like, are you fucking kidding? Are you for real? You know? And that must have been enough to intimidate them that I just turned around and laughed in their face. Like, you have no idea where the hell I'm from. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can tell you from experience, like we actually went, you knowing from Philadelphia, ECW was there, and we actually took a trip from Toronto, Canada to Philadelphia, and we did the Greyhound bus thing as well. And I think it was a 12 or 13-hour bus ride by the time they make all their stops and everything. And we got to Philadelphia and we got to the bus station and we said to the bus driver, "Hey, how far is this hotel from the station?" And they said, "Well, it's probably about a 4-block walk." And I said, let's just walk it. By the time we find a taxi and get down there, and we'll make it there before we get a taxi to get us there.
Right.
And we ended up walking 23 blocks. And it was a long, long walk. And it was really, I don't want to say rough, but it wasn't what we were expecting, I guess.
Right.
And we walked through there, and then we ended up going out at night to say, okay, let's go look where this bingo hall is, the famous bingo hall for ECW.
Right.
And it's not in the best area.
No.
We walked up into there's like a chop shop near there, and I walked straight up the driveway, and it's wide open, and you had like 4 guys just hanging out in the chop shop. And I walked up, and my buddy's like, "Hey, dude, like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to ask them where this thing is, where this bingo hall is." And he was like, "I wouldn't go up there if I were you." And I walked straight up there and I was like, "Hey, where's the ECW bingo hall?" And I did it from a distance just in case, because my buddies were kind of like way behind me and I don't even know if they could even got to me if they wanted to. And they told us where it was actually, but it was kind of a sketchy area. So that was kind of our experience there with Philly.
Well, it's kind of funny because Philadelphia and even in the wrestling scene because of ECW, Philadelphia's got a bad reputation. Like if you follow sports, the word Philadelphia is just synonymous with hatred. You know, we're the guys that threw fucking ice balls at Santa Claus, you know, and you know, all that happy stuff. If you wear a Cowboys jersey at an Eagles game, you're leaving in a stretcher. I mean, we have that reputation, we do, but the city, as bad as it is, and I could say this, I could say this, being a Philadelphian, as bad as the city can be, and we have earned every bit of the reputations that we have more often than not. But really, a lot of people in Philadelphia I would say, are like the salt of the earth. They're most people in Philadelphia are very, very blue collar. So they'll tell you what they think about you and they'll do it non-apologetically, but most of them would give the shirt off their back to you. Now, that's not saying that there aren't bad eggs in the air. Of course there are. And there are some areas of Philadelphia I would never recommend anybody to go. But more often than not, even in areas like around the ECW arena, you're going to find people that you're probably going to be scared coming up to, but you would find out they're probably some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So just very blunt.
Yeah. It was a different scene from what we were used to growing up in Toronto. I mean, we have our neighborhoods that are a little bit rough and a little bit sketchy, but I don't think we were prepared at that point in our lives. I think we were still maybe like 18, 19 years old when we had gone. I don't think we were prepared at that point of our lives for the differences between the two cities.
Well, what about you? You said you're in Canada. What part of Canada?
I'm in a city called Whitby, so it's just a little bit east of Toronto, probably about half an hour from Toronto. But we're part of a place called the Greater Toronto Area. It's the GTA, and there's like 5 different municipalities that are involved with that, and we're part of. So technically, we're Toronto.
Would it be considered French Canadian territory, like Eastern?
No. So the French Canadian would be more of Quebec. We're in Ontario. We are we're bilingual throughout the entire country. We have 2 official languages, but I think more people in Ontario speak a lot of English as opposed to French, whereas Quebec would be more French as opposed to the English.
That's why I was asking, because the only time I've ever been to Canada was when I was 14 years old. I was part of a naval youth organization out here, and we actually did a 2-week summer cruise on a guided missile frigate that ported in Montreal. And so I got to spend a day and a night in Montreal, Canada, which was, even at 14, it was absolutely beautiful. Plus, I could drink there at 14. But it was an absolutely beautiful city, but it just sucked that I couldn't speak the language. They're all French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even myself, I mean, we took French in high school. I took it up until we had what we call Ontario academic credits. So that would be like grade 13 here. And they taught us French up to there, but there's no way today I would be able to go into Montreal or anywhere in Quebec for that matter and be able to carry on a full conversation of French.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a different language, and I haven't picked up on it. And I mean, I was pretty good in school, but today, no. I mean, that was 25 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, man. It's like 14, I'm 30, I'm 43 now. So it's like you're talking almost 30 years ago. Yeah. Luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I did the years of wrestling and spent a good decade in Colorado, starting from that bus trip. So
and you went by the name Matt Wylde?
Correct. I started out my career. It's kind of funny how I wound up with the name. When I started my career, the name Matt kind of came right off the bat, because it turns around I was pretty good at bumping. My trainers felt that I was pretty good at bumping, and that I was a good chain wrestler and mat wrestler. So the name Matt came from the mat wrestling. But originally they thought that my personality said that I should be Matt Jericho. I should be Chris Jericho's little cousin. And for the longest time, almost up until graduation, that was going to be my name. And I hated it. I didn't want to mark gimmick. I didn't want to be Chris Jericho's little cousin, I didn't want to make my career off of somebody else's legacy.
Right.
And so one day, laying on a couch in my apartment, I was listening to some Ozzy Osbourne and going through the little leaflets in the CD case, and I was just reading the names of the band, Randy Rhoads. It was the Greatest Hits album, and came to along Zakk Wylde's name, and I just said Matt Wylde out loud, and it hit me, and I'm like, that's it, that's what I'll do. And I took on the moniker The Extreme at that time because I wanted to show off the fact that I was hardcore. So I was the Extreme Matt Wylde, and that's how I started my career. And then I dropped Extreme when I moved to Colorado, and was just Matt Wylde as a heel, and had the personality of I come, just like off the bus. It's like, I come from Philadelphia, you guys ain't got shit on me, type deal. And that was my mentality up until I turned face. Good guy for people that don't understand the wrestling jargon. And that was actually because my promoter dared me made a bet with me that he could turn me face. There's no way. I'm the hottest heel you've got. There's no way you could turn me face. Like, I get escorted out of the building every show because people are waiting for me in the parking lot, And he's like, all right, I got you. Come up with a moniker. I'm like, what, like The Extreme? He said, no, something new, something that fits. I'm like, well, I'm East Coast Pride, and I'm a Shawn Michaels mark, so how about East Coast Kid? We'll call myself the East Coast Kid, Matt Wylde. I said, okay. He said, next show, I want you to come out to the ring with an American flag, so go get an American flag. I said, okay, this is going to be cheap heat. Got it. So I went and got an American flag. I show up at the show, and I'm booked against Super Destroyer and his manager, the General Hussein. They put me up against an Iraqi gimmick.
That's almost like the Hogan Sheik kind of
pretty much
story back in the day. Yeah,
pretty much. So instant face, and that unfortunately that was, well, not unfortunately, but unfortunately I lost the bet. He won, and I stayed face until I retired. And remained the East Coast Kid. Actually, I did when I retired, I was started taking on the moniker the Independent Icon, kind of playing off the fact that I've been all over the United States as Matt Wylde, and 20 plus years, and being a wily veteran instead of the young punk kid that the gimmick always was. I thought it was a cute little spoof to call myself the Independent Icon, but I don't know if that ever would have stuck because I didn't stay around long enough.
Yeah. And I actually was listening to another podcast that you were on, and you were saying that you got to actually work in an actual WrestleMania ring from, was it WrestleMania 3?
Yes.
That you got to work in that ring?
Yes, it was down in Maryland. I got to do a match, and I remember the match, but ironically, I don't remember the company. But they had bought the actual ring from WrestleMania 3, the actual WWF ring that they had during WrestleMania 3. It had the legitimate ropes. It wasn't wire and hose taped up. It was legitimately like boat rope, like the rope you would use to tie up a battleship. Shit hurt to hit, and the ring was stiff as hell. Oh my God. There anybody who thinks that rings, especially back in the day, rings were like trampolines. No, this was like falling on concrete floor. There was no give to this ring. But
well, it had to hold Andre in that ring, right?
Exactly. It was reinforced, and it was an honor to be in the ring, even though at the time it was me and my tag team partner facing the Canadian Dream and Jeremy Spoken. And actually, another funny part of that match was I broke the tip of my right index finger in that match, and I still to this day have no idea how. I found out after the match when I went to try to get into my locker, and I used my hand. And, you use the side of your hand to lift up the locker to open the door. And when I went to go do that, it was just a sharp stabbing pain into my hand. I'm like, what the hell? And I found out I broke the tip of my finger. Still don't know how.
But I would imagine a lot of injuries happen in wrestling. I don't know if you've suffered any major injuries besides the broken finger, but I mean, imagine a lot of injuries happen in pro wrestling.
I've had a lot of they weren't major, they weren't like life threatening or career ending, but I would call them major in the fact that they sucked and hurt. I've had bruised ribs, bruised ankle bone. I've dislocated my nose 3 times. I've had a couple teeth knocked out. It's been interesting. I've dislocated a couple things here or there, or bruised a couple things here or there, but thank God nothing that's been long lasting. So.
And who are some of the wrestlers that you actually worked with? Was there anybody that would be well known, not on the independent circuit, that have made it somewhere where people would know them, or was it more just mainly independent workers?
I mainly worked independent workers, but I've met my share, whether I've worked them or worked with them, like on the same show, or they wound up showing up at some event that I was at. I have met some of the bigger names. I mean, just if I'm gonna list names, I might as well start off with my trainers, my official trainers, who were Anthony Sorelli and Gary Wolf, the ECW
Pitbulls.
So yeah. I had them as trainers, and of course, through my course of training, I wound up meeting people like Dancing Stevie Richards, Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers. I told a story before about meeting George the Animal Steel for GWA, and how he was supposed to rip open the turnbuckle like he always does, but the promoter had just bought brand new turnbuckles, so they were supposed to put one just for him, an older one. And when it was time for him to rip up the turnbuckle, he went to the wrong turnbuckle and ripped up one of his Izzy's $400 turnbuckle pads. I've had long conversations with George Steele. I've gotten drunk with Honky Tonk Man. I've gotten high with Rob Van Dam. Gotten drunk with Chris Jericho. Had long conversations with Jimmy Superfly Snuka. God, I've met AJ Styles and CM Punk before they became names. There's just a lot of different people throughout the years.
And how were they in terms of, like, if you were saying that you got drunk with Chris Jericho, how was that? Because right now he's kind of older. I think he's 47, 48 years old, around there. And he's just reinvented his whole career in AEW right now. He's just a fantastic performer, fantastic, like, just to get his persona out there. even with Rob Van Dam, I know we used to tease him. We have been to a couple of ECW events, one in Philly, a couple in Toronto when they had come to Toronto. And we would just like, he would look at us showboating at the camera, and we would just be tapping our watches like, come on, man, you're taking too long. Like, this is ridiculous. And, he'd give us a smile from time to time when he would see us. But how was it just hanging out with those guys and just shooting the shit?
Well, the Rob Van Dam thing, like, I know you asked about Chris Jericho, but to give you an example, like the Rob Van Dam thing was completely by accident. It was guilty by association, and somebody else that I knew him. So they met up with him, and it was just like, I was standing there like, oh, it's fucking RVD, and shit like that. And the ECW days, so he was a big deal to me, but not necessarily to the rest of the world yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so he's just, hey, dude, you want to smoke? Dancing Steven Richards, for example, the big thing I had in common with him is he's a huge video game buff. So, anytime I talk to him, we usually just bullshit about the next Resident Evil game. Chris Jericho I met because one of the wrestlers who wasn't the pit bulls, but also took interest in training me or helping train me, became a very good friend, was named Midnight, and he was part of a faction called the My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. He was the one who was actually friends with Chris Jericho during the day that Jericho was working in WCW and in ECW, and he was still doing the Lionheart gimmick. And so on occasion when Jericho would come into town into Philly, he would stay and crash on Midnight's couch. So that's how I wound up with that, because I was hanging out with Midnight one night, and Jericho wound up showing up, and we just sat around bullshitting and drinking, and he was really there to hang out with Midnight, and I just got to sit there and listen, more than anything, because I was a greenhorn at the time. So, you don't talk to the vets until they talk to you. So,
yeah. Yeah,
it was cool. He seemed like a very down to earth guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of them do. I mean, even if I know you kind of have to put out that vibe when you do public appearances, stuff like that. I mean, there's that stuff like that again. But we ended up meeting a bunch of them. We went to a restaurant. They came to Toronto for a show, and this was years ago. But we ended up going to a restaurant that they were known to frequent when they came to Toronto. So I was able to meet Edge. I was able to meet Val Venus, Big Boss Man, Nikolai Volkov. There was a whole bunch of them, Christian, and they were nice enough while they were eating dinner to give out autographs, and they were really like just down to earth, really cool guys. Godfather was pissed drunk out of his mind. It was hilarious, but I mean, it was really, really cool that they took the time, because I went up to Edge, and my friend was with me, and she had said, come get his autograph. And I said, leave the man alone. He's eating. I said, we'll go and we'll see him afterwards and see if we can get an autograph later. And she's like, no. He said it's cool. She brought me over, and she said, my friend here is shy. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I still have that autograph to today. And it says "To Shy Tom" from Edge.
Nice.
Yes.
From personal experience, and maybe it's because I was on the inside, inside looking out instead of the outside looking in. But to me, I think even as a kid, like I knew people who were part of the independent circuit when I was still a teenager, and I got dragged to shows and stuff, and I got to meet people like the Warlord, you know what I mean, and all, and even then I knew that the wrestlers were a different breed of people. Most, not all. Don't get me wrong here, and I definitely don't want to out some people in the business, but most wrestlers are more approachable than, for the sake of argument, I've had this conversation numerous times about an ex-girlfriend and myself being at the Denver Art Museum, and she and her mother are huge Beatles fans. Well, who happens to be in the art museum that day but fucking Ringo Starr? Oh,
wow.
And Ringo's there with some girl, I don't know if it was his wife or whatever, and they were all, oh my God, it's Ringo. And I said I would go up and talk to him and see if I can possibly get an autograph. Now, I'm respectful enough and understand that Ringo's there trying to have a normal life, so I didn't want to draw attention to him. But I walked up and, looking at the same painting he is, just standing there, and I'm like, look, excuse me, Mr. Ringo, I don't mean to intrude. I'm sure you're trying to enjoy your day and everything. But the thing is that my girlfriend and her mother are here, and they are huge fans. would it be possible, not now, but maybe before you leave or whatever, that I could possibly get an autograph, or maybe just have them come over and say hello to you? And he just looks at me and tells me to fuck off and walks away. Like, what a dick.
Oh, wow.
You know, I tried to be so respectful to him, you know, and not be too intrusive, and he just turns around and tells me to fuck off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I haven't had any experiences like that. I mean, we had UFC had come to Toronto, and we went down to the Fan Expo, and all the fighters were down there. So I had met Anderson Silva, I had met John Jones, I have met Cain Velasquez, and we ran into like Rashad Evans. He was just actually in our, like, it's called Dundas Square, so it's just a big area down there where, you know, it's just a big part of downtown. And we just bumped into him literally walking down the street, and we were like, hey, how's it going? And he stopped and he talked with us. He took a picture. He told us what booth he was going to be at the expo. He said, come see me. We ran into Frank Mir, his promoter, I guess, or his manager, and they didn't have anything to sign with. They didn't bring markers to sign autographs with. So we ended up giving him ours. So he was actually the manager to, I believe it was Chuck Liddell as well, for the autograph session. And we said, hey, like, can we get an autograph? And he's like, guys, come on. I was like, we gave you markers to sign for Frank Mir. You had nothing to sign for the fans. And he was like, you're going to use that? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to use that. I want Chuck Liddell's autograph, you know? So he actually went and got it, and he did it for us. So I was happy about that. But he was kind of playing that dick mode where he didn't want to do it just because we gave him markers, but we helped you out. So just give us an autograph, right? So that's the way it worked out. But for the most part, with anybody that we have met, they've been fantastic with us.
There was one time that you kind of reminded me of. I was volunteering before I was a wrestler. I was volunteering at a youth group, Tabor Rams Youth Organization, and they had actually secured ECW to do a show at Tabor Rams Rec Center. So it was an adult show. They had alcohol and stuff like that. So I was standing there drinking a beer, and I was actually mining the keg, the concession area, and the match was Shane Douglas versus Tommy Dreamer. And they went out in the crowd like they do. And Tommy walks up to me as he's dragging Shane Douglas along, and he grabs my beer out of my hand, and he says, "I'll buy you another one." And he slams the beer in Shane Douglas's face, and the match goes on. I'm just like, you know, I didn't mind because I'm working the concession. I just poured another one, but I'm like, Tommy Dreamer took my fucking cup. That's cool, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, after the show, you know, we're running around trying to get autographs like everybody else, and I met little Guido, and I met, you know, some of the other guys, Sandman and Scott Levy and shit. And here comes Tommy Dreamer out of the locker room with his gear, and he's getting ready to leave. And I go over to try to get his autograph. Didn't even mention the beer or anything. And he looks at me as I'm walking up to him. He's like, I owe you a beer, don't I? I said, well, don't worry about it. Concession's closed anyway. He said, no, come with me. So I walked him out to his car, and he opens up his trunk, and he throws his gear in the thing, and then he opens up one of the boxes here that he carries all the merchandise for ECW, and he just gives me an ECW shirt. He says, will this cover it? And I said, I was just going to ask for an autograph, dude. Yeah, cool, awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, they most of them I would find are nice. Like we in Toronto, even with the ECW event that was here, we were just standing in line, and I think, you know, with the ECW arena with the bingo hall there, it was more first come first serve. You have to stand in line pretty early to get in. There's no assigned seating, I think, except for right at ringside. Right. And then in Toronto, it was the same concept. They did the same thing. We were in a smaller arena, and we had to go at, I believe it was 6 a.m. We got there. It was me and my buddy, and we waited for another 8 guys to come down and meet us, because they're like, I'm not going at 6 a.m. You guys go, you wait in line, and then we'll join you later. So I said, no problem, let's go. And it ended up being that security thought that I was one of the wrestlers. And I was standing in line, and they told me, go ahead, go on backstage. And me at that point was sitting there going, really? I'm just allowed to walk right back there? And they're like, yeah, Paul Heyman's here, Chili Willy's here, you know, just go right onto the back. And I was like, no, like you're saying that I can just walk in the back there. So they had thought that I was a wrestler, and I was like, stupid I didn't take the opportunity to just walk back there, because they probably would have thought maybe a mass transit incident, or I'm trying to get in, or whatever it is. But Spike Dudley ended up coming out and meeting with the fans in the lineup. And it was super cool because he was just taking pictures with everybody, giving everybody autographs. And, Spike Dudley's not a huge name that a lot of people would know. But growing up a wrestling fan, you would know who he is.
He's more well known than what he was. I mean, he was a small guy, but there ain't nobody in this business currently or back then that had the heart Spike did. That's just without question.
Yeah. And it was just so cool to have him come out to the line. He took a picture with us with like his like kind of trademark face with his thumb up, and he had like the lip over to the side, and he had a beer in his hand. And it was just a cool kind of situation that came to be there. And that's what I mean by saying a lot of these guys they're so for being around the fans and appreciating the fans as well. As long as you're not hardcore, like running at them and, like screaming like concert goers or whatever it is, I'm sure they're all pretty good about it.
I don't know if it's planned or not planned. I know a lot of times there's working the worker, but I've seen footage of like for the sake of argument, like John Cena coming to an arena and fans are there to meet and greet and stuff like that as he's trying to walk in, and then somebody challenges him to a rap off because he was famous for the rap off shit, and like they would actually try to do the rapping disses like he would do to him, and he'd play along. Like, again, that could be a complete and total work, but it seems to me like some of them even play. I know The Rock does it. The Rock, when he was wrestling, he was constantly pulling the it doesn't matter what to the fans and shit like that, and having them play off of him and him play off of them and shit like that. So I mean, I think some of them get off on it. I really do. Like, not dirty or whatever, but they play along as opposed to like having an issue with the over the top fan.
Right. Yeah. Now, I know you had mentioned that you don't even watch the product today at all.
It's terrible.
Do you know anything that's going on? Yeah, I feel the same way. I can't even even watch it. Like, I could literally PVR it and watch it in 7 to 8 minutes, just fast forwarding through the whole thing.
I'm just not happy with I don't know much about AEW. I got to be fair. I haven't really watched. I watched the first pay-per-view, the inaugural show that got premiered, and I didn't think it was terrible. But I said, I'll give it a mid and see what the buzz is about, see what it does. Because at that point, it was just like, okay, Dusty Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes. Gee, not original, type. And but the WWE, like, to me, the after the ruthless aggression era, not the attitude, not the other ones, when they stopped doing, I don't want to use the term adult wrestling, but when they decided to go Disney friendly with their PG shit, they lost something. And I said they lost something since the end of the Monday Night Wars. When Vince bought WCW and ECW, he was his own worst enemy because the storylines, the talent, the progressions in the matches and the shows was all dictated by the fact that he had competition and he had to be better than his competition. Yeah. Now that there's no competition, which is what I'm hoping AEW and things like Impact actually provide, Ring of Honor provide, is actual competition to WWE to give them a fire under their ass to actually put out a better product, because the storyline writing has been sloppy as shit. The in-ring work is terrible. Like, people are singing praises about girl power and the women wrestlers. And I'm going to say something that's very unpopular. There are some very, very talented female wrestlers in WWE right now, but they look sloppy as shit. And that is disgraceful to me. When I think of female wrestlers, I think of Bull Nakano. I think of Medusa. I think of wrestlers like that who went out there and outside of the outfits, you could not tell that they were male or female because they just went out and whooped somebody's ass, and their shit tight and deliberate, and every bump, every cell, everything looked right. And then ever since the Trish Stratus shit, now it's better than the Trish Stratus era, but I mean, that was the era where it was more about how sexy you look and diva than how solid you are in the ring. And I do like the fact that this new incarnation of the women's division has gone back to the traditions of being about wrestling more than about looks. But it doesn't look sharp. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look deliberate. Like they need to spend less time worrying about making Becky Lynch look like the man, and more about Becky Lynch looking like she can kick the shit out of a man.
Yeah.
Honest opinion.
Yeah.
But then on the opposite end of the coin, you think about all the heydays of WWE or wrestling in general, but especially in WWE. You could always hang your hat on select groups of people as far as in the men's division is concerned. You know, you always had Hogan, but Hogan also had Andre, and he had Macho Man, and you know, stuff like that. And then the Attitude Era, you had your Bret Harts, and you had your Sid Viciouses, and you had your Shawn Michaels, but you also had your Triple H's. You also had, you know, Kevin
Austin and Rock and
you know, you had those people. I don't think you have anybody in the E right now that's worthy of it. AJ, maybe, sure. I would give credit to the long-haired one from the Shield, not Roman Reigns, but Seth Rollins.
Seth, yeah.
You know, maybe you can hang something on them, but that's kind of it. You know,
yeah. Well, I think the problem is they're not letting any other superstars take that chance and going with them. They're still shoving the same stars down your throat week after week after week, and there's wrestlers sitting back there that, you know, you could probably build and probably work a program with an AJ Styles to help them, because, you know, AJ Styles is going to pull a 4 or 5 star match out of you.
Right.
He's super talented, but you know, you still have the same guys. And then, you know, they're bringing back the older guys as well. Like last night, I think, or Friday night, whenever SmackDown is on, I read that Joseph Park showed up, who was Abyss in TNA, and he showed up with AJ Styles as Joseph Park. And, you know, now you're wondering, what are they going to do with him? Like, you're probably about 5 to 7 years too late on that train with Abyss.
I'll tell you right now, the one thing I do know is that they are drowning probably the strongest gimmick they've had, and that's Bray Wyatt.
Yep.
They are going to kill him the same way you kind of killed the legend of Cactus Jack, in my opinion. Cactus Jack was phenomenal, and of course the Mankind gimmick was solid when it came to WWE. But then you did the Dude Love, and then the triple jumping between gimmick and gimmick kind of killed the legend of Cactus Jack for Mick Foley. I see the exact same issue with Bray Wyatt. When Bray Wyatt came in with this Deliverance style fucking crazy Firefly gimmick, that was
Waylon Mercy kind of gimmick.
Yeah, the Waylon Mercy. That was all you needed. He was sold. He was solid, you know? Yeah. But now, what is he, the fucking virus or what? I'm not even sure.
Fiend.
The Fiend. Like, what the fuck what are you doing with this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he's a solid worker. He really is a solid worker. He puts on solid matches. I remember when they first brought him in, he was Husky Harris, and he was part of some Nexus group that they had Wade Barrett, and can't remember a couple of the other guys that were in there, Titus O'Neil, I think. And, you know, nobody really gave 2 shits about him at that point. It was just like, who's this guy? And it is what it is. And then he became this whole Bray Wyatt character. And that was an amazing gimmick. It was an awesome gimmick. But then you kind of, you know, I don't know if you watered it down, because you had the Bludgeon Brothers in there with, what are their names again? I mean, the guys in AEW now. The 2 tag team guys, Rowan and
right.
Yeah,
I don't know their names.
You know, and then they brought Braun Strowman into the mix as well, and you know, and Bray could have worked that gimmick all by himself.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
it
is what it is.
It was literally Undertaker's ministry. Yeah. Undertaker didn't need the ministry. He didn't need Viscera and what was Hugh Morris's character in it. You know, and you know what I mean. Like it was stupid for the ministry. Like the Undertaker didn't need it. Bray Wyatt didn't need his flock, family, whatever the fuck it was. You know, but Bray's gimmick with the, like you said, like the Waylon Mercy gimmick was solid. You didn't have to fuck with it. There are times where you have to change gimmicks, like you said with changing to Bray from Husky Harris. That's just like, remember, Dolph Ziggler was one of the Spirit Squad.
Yep.
Originally, you know, so
Nikki, I think his name was.
yeah. You know, so I mean, sometimes a gimmick change is good, but sometimes when you find the right gimmick, leave it alone.
Yeah. I mean, the writers, I don't know if they do it as punishment to some of these guys, but they had Dolph Ziggler was playing one of the cheerleaders from the squad, and then you had Chavo Guerrero, who's an amazing worker, who started to play Kerwin White, who was like a golf caddy, and I don't remember, it was Tony Atlas that was back in the day that they started to play like an African tribesman. So I don't know if it's the wrestlers that are actually going to him and saying, hey, I want to try this gimmick, or if they're being punished for something, because some of these gimmicks are just way out there, and I don't know how they're even allowed to be on TV. Vince must be just sitting in the back just laughing.
Well, I mean, they're still not as bad as they were. Like, if you remember back in the days of the WWF Superstar and Challenge shows on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, you know, and you remember the gimmicks like the Goon, you know, or
the hockey skates, boots, yeah.
Or my all-time favorite was from Who Knows Where, weighing Who Knows What. And you couldn't tell it was Jim the Anvil Neidhart under a hood with yellow spandex on.
Right. Yeah. And then you had Mantar.
Yeah, Mantar.
Yeah.
Bastion.
Bastion Booger. Yeah, I remember him.
The short straw. You know, Eugene. God forbid, Eugene gimmick. You know, I mean,
that would never fly today. Having somebody play a special needs kind of character, almost in terms of making fun of it. I don't know, because he wasn't really special needs, right? So I think people would get offended at it.
No, he wasn't really special needs, but I don't know. The way Eugene was played, he was lovable enough that people might have just forgiven it, even today.
Yeah.
You know,
like, I didn't mind. That was Nick Densmore, and I didn't mind the gimmick back then. But I know the way the world is today, with a lot of people getting offended with a lot of things, I'm not sure how they would take it today.
No, you're not wrong, and I think that's part of what's killing wrestling, the same way it's killing comedy and everything else, is the fact of worrying about being within the political correct realm. You know, part of what makes wrestling work is it's very much a commentary on modern events. Think about it. Back during the Gulf Wars, when Sergeant Slaughter became a turncoat and an Iraqi soldier, you know, and had to battle Hulk Hogan, the ultimate All-American, it was a complete mirror of current events at that time. You know, D-Generation X's rise in WWE was mirrored to the fact of the angsty teenagers growing up and refusing to bow to authority. You know, it's always been a mirror to current events. Now current events, as everybody's offended by everything so much, and you can't make fun of this or make fun of that. Well, how are you supposed to mirror that if you don't create the bad guys that you're supposed to be battling against?
Right.
You know, it's kind of a catch.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to watch now. It's just hard to watch. And like I said, like, I could run through a 3-hour episode in 10 minutes, because I'm just fast forwarding it. And it's just like, this, no, don't want to see this. I don't care. And then you get to some point, you're like, okay, let me check this out. And then you get halfway through the segment and you're, this, I don't care. So it's not the way the 97 to 99 to 2001 would probably be my favorite years in terms of, I guess, the storylines and the characters involved, and just the sheer entertainment value that came out of it. Those would probably be my favorite years.
I wouldn't disagree, and I'll be fair in this aspect. I think the mainstream wrestling is suffering right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody's suffering because of COVID, but I mean, you know, the mainstream wrestling's the one suffering the most right now because of poor storylines, poor decisions. Like, I was falling off on Raw long before AEW came around or whatever, just because of the fact, like you said, I could watch a 3-hour show and I'm lucky if I get 3 wrestling matches out of it. You know? Yeah, and the reason being is because they're only putting on 3 wrestling matches. The rest of it's, you know, mic work, which, you know, I love having my time on the stick too, but I'd keep my shit to fucking 5 minutes, not 95 minutes. You know, whatever. And So I think once everything kind of returns to normal, once COVID is over, if people are starving for wrestling, just hit the independents. You'll get what you want. You know, they may not be games, but you'll get what you want.
Yeah, definitely. Because like right now, I mean, here with, I guess, my channels, I would only get the major ones. So I would get WWE, I would get AEW, I get Ring of Honor, but it's kind of iffy at what times it's on. It's sometimes it's on like Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and sometimes it's on like a Saturday at like 2 p.m. And yeah, so it's hit and miss if I'm able to catch it. But other than that, like the independents, we don't really get any kind of airtime for that. I know for if they have any airtime, but the independents here, I don't know if we have very many independent shows that actually are in Toronto. I don't know the extent of that.
I don't know how far you are from Calgary, but I know like the Stampede Wrestling's still running. I mean, that's got a legend.
Yeah, that's far away. Like I'm closer to Philly than I am to Calgary.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, if you're close enough to Philly, just come down and watch Ring of Honor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's a whole different game now for wrestling, and it's just I don't even want to be bothered anymore. I just read the recaps online sometimes, and mostly because I like you, I had gotten out of the wrestling scene. But when I was working with special needs kids, I had this one student that I was working with, and his favorite thing was wrestling. And he would talk to me about it every single day. And I felt the need that I had to catch up on some stuff just because I could actually communicate with this kid. And he would just ask me, did you see this? Did you see this? And I'd say, I did. Or I'd say, you know what? I didn't watch it yet. I taped it. Don't tell me what happened, just in case I had forgotten to read up on the results. And that's how I kind of got back into it. And then AEW started, but they're starting to snag all the guys from WWE that got released. So all of their guys are starting to like go down to the bottom of the card, and the WWE guys are getting top spot. Luke Harper, that's the other guy's name.
Oh, okay.
Like he's in the AEW now. So it just, for me, it's too much.
Well, you see, you're right where I am. I mean, I feel terrible because like I go on these interviews and stuff that gets set up, and I'm not an interview guy. Because not because I don't like to talk. I'll sit here and bullshit with you all day, but I don't like to be interviewed because of the fact that, like, who the hell am I? You know what I mean? I'm a guy in my basement right now, talking on a computer, and that's all I am. Sure, I could talk about my years of wrestling, but I was an independent guy. Most people don't know who the hell I am. My musical career, sure, okay. If you didn't live in Denver from up until 2007 or live in Philly before 2000, you don't know who the hell I am musically, and even then you had to be in the scene to fucking know who the hell I am. So, I mean, who wants to talk to me, So it's very weird because people who do know that I'm a professional wrestler or former professional wrestler, that's the first thing I want to talk about is wrestling. And I always feel bad because of the fact that it's like, well, I don't watch it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you know what? It's still good to sit there and shoot the shit, even about the late '90s and the good runs that they had there, and the Monday Night Wars and the NWO and the DXs and the Austins and the Rocks, and the stuff that we kind of grew up watching and kind of grew up being entertained by compared to what is on TV today.
Oh yeah, I still got DVDs that I've collected over the years. I could put them in and watch. Wrestling with Shadows with Bret Hart, or the Owen Hart story, or In Your House Philadelphia, or from '96, or whatever what have you. I'll watch that shit all day. But as far as the new stuff,
have you actually watched on HBO? They have a documentary called Dark Side of the Ring. Have you checked that out?
I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen the rebroadcasts on YouTube. I watched the Owen Hart one, and I watched, what was the other one I watched? The Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero story.
And there's a Chris Benoit one, and and then they have like Gino Hernandez and a couple of them, Dino Bravo even. The episodes were actually excellent and really, really well done. A lot of information out there that people wouldn't generally know of some of the stories that had happened out there. We don't know how much is fact and how much is put together, but I mean, HBO is not gonna sugarcoat things for, I guess, lack of a better term, of faking the whole episode just to get the ratings. I think that it was generally most of the information that was there. So I think it was pretty cool.
Well, there's always been a stigma to wrestling. I mean, like you mentioned, Dano Bravo, for an example. I mean, for the most part, most people know that it was mob hit that killed him. And that was back in the day when wrestling had ties with the mafia. And so
and they go into that in that episode. They say it's a mob hit, and they say who was probably who it was that probably did it. And so, I mean, they go into a lot of detail about the personal background stories. I know even with Owen Hart, I think his wife didn't want some of the information released, so I don't think they had clearance to say certain things or show certain things on that episode. But I think pretty much the whole series was really well done. I think they're in season 2 or season 3 is coming up, and they have a lot of good episodes. So if anybody is listening, go check it out. I think it was really well done.
I think I got to dig deeper into it, because you're right. It was really well done, and especially the Owen Hart one. Like, I found myself bawling again because of it, and I think the with Owen's wife, I think it's because of the fact that she still truly believes it's foul play.
Yeah,
she probably didn't like the fact that the conclusion is still it was just an accidental death or neglect of equipment on the people that were supposed to do the riggings part, not WWE. Yeah. She thinks no, you know what I mean? So I think that's probably what she's most upset about, is that it's still being portrayed as, well, this was just a glitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But even with the Chris Benoit episode, you look at that episode and you say, man, like the doctors would say that this guy's brain was mush. It was like the brain of like a 3-year-old when they took it out of him, or they opened him up, just because of the amount of chair shots or the amount of hits to the head that he took during his wrestling career. Doing, I guess, especially with the diving headbutt, that he would always connect with that on some part of the body. His head was still getting trauma on it. Right. And I guess that, had an effect on the brain. We don't know what else he was actually going through at the time. I think Chris Jericho actually narrates that episode as well, and he was friends with Chris Benoit. Mm-hmm. And there's just things that we don't know that happened. With you, when you were in it, did you feel like, did you ever have a chair shot to the head or anything like that? Like, what effect do you feel like that had on you? Like concussions, and what happened with that with you?
I had a couple concussions, and I would argue the point that there are some times that I may have like memory lapses. Not severe, just, say short term, like, it's going to sound like Alzheimer's for a minute, but like walking into a kitchen and forgetting what I went in there for type memory losses, but nothing too cognitive. My damage has been more physical. Ever since I retired, I started feeling some of the damages I did to my knees and my back, and stuff like that, now it's like, now I've reached that point where it's like, I can't do that shit no more. You know what I mean? I always joke, I got one more run in me, one more match in me. I don't know if I do, but, I was lucky enough that I didn't do as much cerebral damage as some wrestlers go through. I mean, I've taken chair shots and I've taken DDTs or whatever where I wasn't protected right. And, it'll ring your bell and leave you forgetting what day it is that week for a couple days. But nothing that so far, knock wood, has been long lasting. Hasn't fucked with my motor skills or anything. And part of the decision to retire in 2012 that I did is I didn't want to wind up walking like Mick Foley. Like, I was still in my 30s at the time, and all. And I did not want to, wind up at the end of the day being in my 50s in a wheelchair. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially because in 2012, I still had really young kids that, they're still young, but they're not as young anymore. But I had really young kids, and I didn't want to have to be that guy that can't pick up his daughter. You know what I mean? So that was kind of the end all decision for me to finally say, you know what, it's time to give up. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was your favorite match of yours?
The match I can't remember. No. I had a match in Colorado for the interregional title match, or interregional title, which was kind of their intercontinental or U.S. title for Rocky Mountain Championship Wrestling. And it was aptly titled the Harvest of Destruction match because it took place around Halloween. And what this was basically a Falls Count Anywhere Four Corners of Death match, where we had barbed wire, we had stop signs, we had all the trimmings, and I was taking on a guy named Shama Tango, and we had been going through a feud for the past year where I would get this close to taking the belt from him and he'd fuck me over and whatever, and then I had to work my way up the rank again. And the 2 weeks before the match, I had to do a triple threat tables match for #1 contendership, and I wound up winning. So here's my shot. It's my final shot. This is the final time. If I can't get it now, then I lose the opportunity to ever go after it again. And I wind up winning the match that night. But Shama and I, we were very close friends. Like, understand, we worked together for the last year doing this storyline and this feud, that it was the type of friendship where we no longer pulled punches. Like, people know we choreograph shit. We know we pull our punches and all. But Shama and I became so close friends that, like, we would give face-offs to each other, and the crowd would get so electrified that we would just be like, "You want to do it?" They'd be like, "Fuck it, throw it." And next thing you know, we're throwing real fists, and we're going ham on each other, contacting everything. And then the following day, we'd meet up in the bar and bitch about what we did to each other. Like, we had that kind of friendship. So when it came to Harvest, we went all out, and it became literally the bloodiest match in Colorado wrestling history.
Wow.
To the point that when the show was over, the staff made Shama and I mop up. They wouldn't do it. It looked like a murder scene, Wow. And so I'm very, very proud of that match, even though I don't remember half of it because we beat the shit out of each other that night.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I think if I was working the crew, I would actually make you guys clean it up too. I don't think I'd want to do that either.
Well, it was funny, you're sitting there, you're getting taped up and stuff like that, making sure you don't need stitches, getting checked out by the EMTs and shit, and somebody's handing you a mop. Like, I ain't touching that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's probably one of my most favorites. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So let's go a little bit back to your podcast that you're doing.
Sure.
And just talk to people out there that are listening. I know it's not live right now, but when they do listen to this episode, what they can expect from your podcast, maybe one of your favorite episodes that you've done on your podcast, maybe one of your favorite guests that you've had on, just so that they may be interested in going and checking out your podcast.
Well, I'll tell you what, the new one, the new version, the BT4W weekly show, which is Breaking the Fourth Walls weekly show. This new episode, which we aptly titled "Petting the Moist Snails." Listen to the show, you'll understand why we titled that. But that was probably one of the funnest shows that I've done in quite a while. And it was because of the panel, because we all created segments for the show that will be regular segments into the show besides the interview portion of it, which, like we're doing now, I would record, make it a segment, but it would get put aside until we record the show, and then I would put it in its proper spot. We sat around the round table. One of the first segments we did was Don Smith of the Life Radio, who is now a panelist for Breaking the Fourth Wall as well. And his segment is the news buffet. It may not be worth a shit, but there's a lot of it. And what it is just crazy news from around the world. And the way he presented it and some of the stories he brought us, like a woman believing that she's found the cure for COVID because she drinks smoothies with men's semen in it.
Oh, dear God.
Oh, yeah. And these are legitimate stories. These aren't like, just things we made up for jokes. And I mean, It was absolutely hilarious. You guys definitely got to check out the new Breaking the Fourth Wall. It's going to be releasing every every Tuesday. And of course, Breaking the Fourth Wall interviews are going to be happening as they happen. Like, you know, we're going to be doing one together and stuff like that for that as well. So you could always find those. I think some of my favorite interviews, God, now you're going to make me think. Because there's been a couple of them that I absolutely loved. I think one of my favorites, God, what was the name of their show? Oh God, give me a minute to brainstorm this. I got to remember the name of the podcast that I interviewed, and it was the whole group. And while I was interviewing them, literally they took over my show and started interviewing me. And it was absolutely chaos. About a half hour into the interview is when I was like, wait a minute, this is my show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was the guys from Credence and Bishop's show. Go check them out. They're absolutely hilarious. You know, that was an absolute fun interview, and go check out their podcast. They were great. Probably one of my all-time favorite episodes I ever did, though. And I've told this story numerous times, so anybody who's ever heard me talk about it before, you're probably going to be bored for a minute. But was when we used to do the panel roundtable, Breaking the Fourth Wall on Radiocast FM. We used to have to censor our shit for the show because Radiocast FM tried to keep it radio friendly. And one particular time I believe we were reviewing Ghostbusters 2016. So you can pretty much guess how that goes. And so I had to do a lot of editing, bleeping and stuff because it was just hot garbage. And I sent the show off to Radiocast to be aired, and they didn't check my work and just put it out there. Some Karen got mad because one word did not get bleeped out. The word was twat, for anybody that wants to know. And I was forced to give a public apology on Radiocast FM for offending this one woman. And
wow.
So after I got humiliated like that, I wound up going on Skype with a bunch of the people from the panel, and we were having a meeting discussing on whether we wanted to continue our association with Radiocast or just break off on our own and do our own thing. It wound up us deciding to record the long story short is we wound up recording the meeting and looking up first off the George Carlin 7 words you can't say on television, which led into looking up the FCC's rules of things that can't be said over airways. And I believe at the time it was 46 words. And then we spent an hour to an hour and a half coming up with shit that wasn't on that list that we could use, like, you know, purple-headed yogurt slinger. You know, and basically I got dared by one of the panelists later on. He's like, what are you going to do with that? I said, nothing. I said, I'm just going to leave it here. He's like, you should release it. I said, nah, dude, it would fucking piss everybody off on the planet. He's like, you don't have the balls to release it. I said, oh, yeah? I said, I'll release it. And since it wasn't an official show, I'll call it After Hours. Wouldn't you know, I released it. I released it called After Hours, Fuck the FCC. And when you know, that was one of our hottest shows. People fucking loved it.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
I don't doubt it.
That was probably one of my favorites just because it was so impromptu.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sucks that you have to be careful of what you say, because, you know, your fan base may be looking at it and saying, you know, I love the way that these guys are so unscripted. I love the way that they just speak their mind. And then it's that one person that's going to get offended, and that's going to take your whole podcast and almost shut it down because you're not allowed to say this. And especially if you belong to a community or a network or whatever it is, that one person is the one that's going to be able to ruin it for you. And that just kind of sucks.
Right. You know, and that's where we were. I mean, like, I was friends with the owner of Radiocast. I still am. Even though Radiocast is no longer around, you know. So, like, I was never upset at him. I was upset at being put in that position because one person couldn't handle one word.
Right.
It's like, if you listen to the episode, there was so many curses that were bleeped out. Most people who listened to that episode would have been like, even if they even caught twat, would have been like, okay, he missed one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, at worst, it's like, I see how much he edited. I get it. I can forgive this. No,
Yeah.
this
And somebody took the time to actually write in or call in to the network and say, I'm so offended by this one word.
yeah.
That's just a little bit ridiculous.
So,
Yeah. I know. I get it. I get it. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that was one of my favorite episodes of all time. Is still fuck the FCC. So
Yeah. I'm definitely going to have to check that one out for sure.
I'll send you the link.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me the link and I'll check that episode out because it sounds really funny. It sounds like something that I would actually like listen to.
And let me get even with you. How about you? Out of the shows that you've done, you got a favorite?
We worked on this project that we started with a couple other people, and we called it the podcast convention, and we did a virtual convention where we ran podcasts straight for 24 hours live, and we all ran it through StreamYard, and we did the whole 45 minutes you got as a slot, and the three admins we ran it together. And we had a blast, and it was 24 hours, and I stayed up the entire time to monitor them, even though the other admins, like, they had their set hours that they were supposed to, so we can get some rest. But I was like, you know what, this is too cool. This is really interesting that we had like different podcasts on from around the world. Like you had from UK, from the US, from Canada. I don't remember where the other ones were from, but it was just so cool that we were able to set this up, and we had it 24 straight hours. The next one that we run, we're trying to aim for a 48-hour one. Where we can just run 48 hours straight of podcasts. You're allowed to swear on it. It just streams straight to our Facebook group. And then from there, you can share it to YouTube or to Instagram, like wherever you share your stuff to. But it was just a different concept than what we've been doing lately. We haven't really done too many live shows. So that was really cool. I got my wife to come on with me, and we played a husband and wife newlywed game, even though we're not newlyweds. Just to see how much we know about each other. And we got good feedback from it. Like a lot of people really enjoyed the episode and said, we should all get together and play that game on a recorded episode together and see how that goes. So I think that was one of my favorite episodes.
Right on. Well, if you decide to do that 48-hour one, let Breaking the Fourth Wall know. I'm pretty sure we can come in and screw shit up for a couple hours for you.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah, it's like we just created this group. We came up with the concept because I had started what I called the podcast roundtable. So I was interviewing other podcasts, and I would have 5 or 6 on at a time, and we would just shoot the shit about podcasting because we were all pretty new to the game. And I was just like, what are things that have hampered your start to podcasting, and why did you get into it, and why the name, and just a whole bunch of questions. And then somebody took it a step further and said, hey, why don't we do this? And I said, fantastic idea. If we can get it off the ground, let's run with it. So we did. And it was very successful. We thought we were going to run into a whole bunch of problems, and it was very minimal, the problems that we ran into. But we were able to like fix those on the fly and get the show running for a complete 24 hours. So it was fantastic. We had live panels on the show as well. So we would invite different podcast hosts, and we'd talk about how to market your podcast and women in podcasting. And it was so much fun. So we enjoyed doing that. I mean, I slept for the next 2 days, seeing I was up for the that many hours, but it was a lot of fun.
Right on.
Yeah.
And, again, I keep forgetting this isn't my interview, but it kind of is. I guess what we're going to wind up doing here is taking this interview and just broadcasting it both as Breaking the Fourth Wall and Pod Jerky. It seems like that's going to...
Why not?
So I guess I'll start this off then. Why don't you tell the listeners where they could find, for the Breaking the Fourth Wall show, tell them where they could find your product.
So ours are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We're on all the major platforms at Pod Jerky, Instagram, Twitter at Pod Jerky as well. You can find our link tree. It's actually tap.bio/@Pod Jerky. It'll give you all of our links. So it'll take you to YouTube. It'll take you to our webpage, which we also have as well. It's not an official, webpage. It's podjerky.wixsite.com/podjerky. And you can find a whole bunch of stuff there. We have a bunch of blogs. Some of our episodes are on there. We have some videos on there. Some of the stories that we've actually covered on some of our episodes. So those are pretty much all of our social media handles that you can find us on. We're pretty interactive with everybody who reaches out to us and tries to talk to us. We do get back to you pretty quickly. We are going back to work September 1st. as the schools are reopening. So if anybody does get back to us, then if we don't answer, that's where we are, and we will answer when we get home. But we are actually very, very, very active where we do respond to everybody.
Right. And for your listeners, if you're interested in breaking the fourth wall or any of the subsequent shows from Realm of the Mist Entertainment, just look up Realm of the Mist Entertainment on YouTube or on Anchor, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, wherever quality podcasts can be heard. Of course, look up Breaking the Fourth Wall or Realm of the Mist on any of the social medias, and realmofthemist.com for any future info. And of course, I'm going to say to you, before I let you do your outro for your show, I'm just going to say to you that I promise I will give you a proper interview, but this one's definitely going to be an conversation interview on Breaking the Fourth Wall later on. So
yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on. I mean, I like these interviews better where I don't have to script anything. It's more of just a sit down, shoot the shit, talk about stories, stuff like that. I don't really care for some of the scripted stuff. Some of them you have to do because you just don't know enough about the guests that you're having on or the subject that you're talking about.
Right.
But these are more up my alley, where I'm actually able to be myself and not sound so robotic and be able to just have a normal conversation. So I thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it very much.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate being here. And if I may just offer, I mean, that's the way I kind of do interviews anyways. I always come up with like one or two, I don't want to say generic questions, but conversation starters. And then from there, I let the conversation dictate the questions. It's the easiest way to get to know the person. I do my research when I can do my research. But like you said, sometimes you get people you just can't research. Like, how do I research a sixth grade teacher? You can't. Right. So let the conversation dictate. I always found that's a better way to do it. So
yeah, definitely. But if you're doing stuff on music or movies or stuff like that, there's stuff that you have to have sitting in front of you where, you got to take a quote from here or, a certain scene from here or a certain music clip from here. And you just have to know that. And I work better off just doing normal conversation. I can carry a conversation all day long if need be, but with the scripted stuff, you can tell I'm scripted when I'm scripted. My wife even said, like, hey, that episode sounded really scripted. I'm like, because it was. We had to get some information out that we couldn't describe just in our own words. It had to be put this way. So those scripted ones I don't really like. So I like to go with what we normally do is just a sit down, shoot the shit, and go from there.
Look, the only reason your wife is pointing it out to you is because she's tired of holding up the cue cards.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it's funny because like I've talked about this on other episodes as well, but when I started this podcast, my wife had said, what the hell are you doing? Like, why do you have a microphone? Like, what are you planning? I said, I'm going to do a podcast. And she said, what? And at first it wasn't kind of a thing that she was kind of into. And man, has she gotten way into it now, because now she likes to be on the episode. She actually enjoys it. She bought me this light for the camera so that I don't look so orange in doing video calls now, because I used to look orange because I'm in the basement with pot lights. And she bought me this whole 5-foot light stand, and so it's grown pretty well over the last 4.5 months, and we're getting out there, and she's enjoying every minute of it. So when she does have a chance, she loves to come on. She loves to chat. She loves to just shoot the shit, and it's fantastic. So that's the cool part about it. I get to do it with my wife as well. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I'll extend the offer right now. Sometime in the near future, we'll get you and your wife to be guest panelists on the weekly show. So that way you can sit down and join the conversation and maybe laugh at some of the goofy shit that we do besides the interviews. So
100%. My wife will be down for it. It's not a problem, as long as it's usually on a weekend, because she works like her ass off during the day. She's probably 7 a.m. until like 5 p.m. she's working. So unless it's like an evening thing, but
I don't think we set a permanent date. I just know that we release by Tuesday. So
yeah,
we'll
work something out. I mean, we have each other's contacts, so we'll work something out and get something going. Because I know I owe you an episode as well, but we did run a little bit longer than we thought we'd run this episode. Because again, it was just shooting the shit and having a good conversation. So
That's why I started interviewing you. I figured I could at least get if with your permission, I would take
Absolutely.
the episode 2 and edit and release it that way at least.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not a prick like that. You know, I've run into other podcasters where I say, hey, I was on their show, can I actually use this episode for one of ours? And they say, no, this is just ours. I'm not going to be like that. I'm whatever. Everybody share the wealth. Go ahead. You have different listeners than I do. I have different listeners than you do. I'm not stealing any of your listeners, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day,
I hope you do.
Use it. Yeah.
I hope you do. I hope you take all 15 of them.
Hey,
yeah. But no, I've always been a person for the community. You know what I mean? And I want to help grow your show as much as I want to see my show grow. You know what I mean? I don't just concentrate on my show. So I mean, you know, I think the community would be so much better if people would work together instead of worrying about undercutting each other. You know what I mean? So
absolutely, 100%. And that's why we did the convention. It was like, you know what, we're going to share this, and then we started with what we call a Sunday night showcase. So we did a random name generator from everybody that was in the group that wanted to participate in it. And what we did is the 3 admins are going to start hosting. So we ran one on this Sunday night for one certain podcast, and then this Sunday night we're doing another podcast, and it's just about them. So we don't even kind of say our name. It's just about them and their favorite episode, and we talk to them for 45 minutes. We go live in the group, and we get question and answer period. So it's kind of just trying to help everybody else grow their product as well.
Well, if you do that to me, I'm never going to answer my favorite episode question, because I'll just refer to, go back to the episode where you interviewed me. I already gave that answer. Let's talk about wet farts. I don't care. Let's
yeah. Yeah.
It'll be 45 minutes of me going reverting back to junior high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was great talking to you. I mean, I don't usually do podcasts this long, but it didn't even feel like it was a long time during the conversation. So it was fantastic to have you on. Definitely get you back and come onto your show. We'll work something out in the near future.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on. And as always, stay safe, be kind to each other, and we will see you later. Well, I'm just gonna